Good evening to Detroit in black and white, our Wednesday evening edition, our midweek edition. Today it's just the two amigos, not the three or four. It's Jim Nardoni, the former chief of police for the Trenton Police Department. Good evening, Jim.
Good evening. Hey, Queen B. Glad to see you back.
And you have myself, Vanessa Moss, attorney, sometimes a political consultant, a mama, uh, stuff starter sometimes.
Jet setter. Jet
Right,
setter.
trendsetter. Yes,
Well, yeah.
I just want to say, listen. Y'all know what we want y'all to do. We first of all, we want to tell you thank you for joining us, but we want you to like, subscribe, and share, and tell all your friends about the greatest show on what these YouTube streets. Okay. Um, we also want you to join us by making comments. Good evening, Queen B, Dwayla, Boys, hey sis, Derek Henry, Kenneth Reed, Mr. 1213. Queen B said she had to move stuff around to be here because I got a question for Vanessa. Okay, awesome. You can ask questions, but before you ask your question, Queen B, I think Jim wants to talk about some things and whatever else it is that any of you viewers want to talk about, pop off about, give your opinion about, or whatever, you're more than welcome to that. Like, subscribe, and share. Like, subscribe, and share. Okay, Jim, what's
Hey,
up?
Janet. So, on our last show, I think it was the last show, Eric and a few other people made comment, and we are talking about a lot about the United States government and how they wanted to keep people stupid or uneducated, whatever the case is, right? So, interestingly enough, over the last 10 days, I was out in South Dakota. And I thought about this response. When I think about life these days, sometimes I think about a lot of times how our viewers and our colleagues, how they feel about certain things. And I try and get myself into their head and go, well, why do they think that way, right? It sounds like, and I use the word sinister. What I meant was it's an evil government that would try and keep people in the dark. So, today, October 1st, Wounded Knee. If anybody's not familiar with the Wounded Knee Massacre in 1890, 300 Lakota people were killed, mostly women and children, by the United States Army on the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. Well, there's a debate about it. A couple of senators tried to pass some legislation because there were medals of honor given to the people that killed women and children at Wounded Knee in 1890. A lot of women, pregnant women, and children were massacred at Wounded Knee. It was not really a battle. The indigenous people, the Lakota people, had turned over their weapons to the United States government, and then the United States government decided to exterminate them, I guess, for lack of a better word. Moving forward, the President of the United States on September 30th said at Marine Corps Base Quantico, President Trump suggested that dangerous U.S. cities should be utilized as training grounds for military personnel to fight the enemy from within. So as I'm thinking about all these things, thinking about Wounded Knee, thinking about the extermination of not just the buffalo, the spiritual animal of the West, right? The indigenous people, they depended on buffalo, really American bison, for their lives, for food and tools and clothing and shelter and all these other things. And there we see an example of the United States government in this state, just destroying the buffaloes. Now we have a United States president that says he wants to use the United States military as a training ground for big cities to be a training ground. Dangerous U.S. cities should be utilized as a training ground for the enemy from within. And if that doesn't make the hair on the back of your neck stick up, so what are you going to do? You're going to turn the military on our own people? Is like we did to the indigenous people in 1890? It's It's mind-boggling to me. So when people say things like, my thought was that's outrageous to believe that the government wants people dead or dumb, right? But
Mhm.
who would think that the United States government would just wipe out a people?
But it's been done before, right, Jim?
Exactly.
By the history that you just quoted about what happened in South Dakota. So I think we could look at a point to the fact that when we talk about education, they took civics out of school. People don't even know civics. Kids don't even know. There's so many things that civics is important. So I think that when you have statements made by Eric or myself or other people, maybe even some of our co-hosts here on Detroit in Black and White, the fact of the matter is we do believe there are a lot of people who believe that if you keep people dumb, you can control them. You can control the country, you can control the narrative. And people fall lock and step. And what I mean by that is you have people who we talk about how important education is. And when we say education, we're not talking about not necessarily saying everybody has to go and get a college degree, everybody has to go to a trade school, but you need to know the basics. If you don't even know civics, I don't even know why you're going into the voting booth because you don't know what the heck you're doing. But if you have people who are not who are not uneducated, then we can control the narrative. So I don't think it's far fetched to think that the government can be sinister. I really don't.
And thank you, Tamari, for your comment. I understand exactly what you're saying. I guess in my example, I'm not trying to just focus on indigenous people. It's all kinds of people. Certainly, we had a United States Constitution and a Bill of Rights and all these things that ignored Black people. It was like they didn't exist, which I understand it all. I understand it's tragic. But this was in my face, and I thought about it. I like I said, I thought about some of the things that people said to me, and I thought, well, geez, now maybe there's a reason that this is right in front of my face today, where I'm reading about this or seeing that Crazy Horse was disarmed and then he was murdered, by the United States government.
So my question to you though, Jim, is that you said that the president of the United States, hey, we want to use the military service to basically, as training ground, we're going to put them in these dangerous cities. What do you have to say about people in the cities that are turning on themselves? Today, as I was driving to class, because I teach on Wednesdays, someone called me and said, "Hey, did you hear about the shooting over at the Rosa Parks bus station?" And I was like, "No." They said it's terrible, but we hear stories about that, not here in the city of Detroit, but other areas where people just seem to just disrespect, have no regard for life, no respect for life. So are
But that's
we
a
the
crock.
are we
Can I
the
stop you?
enemy within? Huh?
Can I stop you for just a second?
Sure.
They're trying to make it more of a city problem and more of a Black person problem, which is a crock of garbage. Let me
Yeah,
tell you
I
something.
agree.
Charles Starkweather in Nebraska, killed his girlfriend's family and killed all these people in the 1950s, right? He went around killing people. So trying to make it an inner city issue only
Mhm,
is dishonest.
mhm. Yep. So, to
Can we
turn it
talk
on
to
to cities. Now, I did see something the other day where he said you can't use the N word. Was he talking about the N word? I just saw the headlines. I didn't get a chance to read it. I'm still trying to get myself back together from my vacation. But I do agree with you that it not only appears, it in fact is cities where there is a large Black population, where he's saying, listen, we're going to use the military as training ground in these cities. But you have some people who feel like it's okay. And I'm going to give you an example. Today in class, um, we're talking about the comparative legal systems and looking at legal systems in the United States compared to Brazil, compared to South Africa, etc., all around the world. And one of the guys in the class, somehow the conversation turned, I don't know how it turned, but it turned to a guy that moved here from Chicago and he was in the military. You know what he said? This is a black man. He said, listen, I want the military here. He's like, you don't live in the madness. I live in the madness, and something has to be done. So someone like him feels like this kind of thing is okay. And it's really sad. Whereas you had another guy in the class who said, listen, I don't live in your neighborhood. I don't live in that kind of environment. But my mother lives in the same house that I grew up in, and she doesn't have those kind of issues in her neighborhood. So I really don't understand where you're coming from, where you think that the military presence, it should be okay and that it is okay. So you have people with different opinions about it, and those opinions come from what they have experienced.
I think that's true. Eric's talking about the word nuclear as the N word that I think.
Okay. I didn't. I just saw the
So,
which the
so in other words,
yeah.
and I'm not familiar, but I think he's talking about families and the breakdown of the family. I think that's where you are, Eric. Please give us a little more direction. Tamari said, "Black people built America." Do you agree with Black people giving reparations? Well, I believe that anybody should be able to. We have a legal system that doesn't work, so we shouldn't go that direction. But people should be made whole, regardless of whether they're indigenous people, Black people, Hispanic people. I think there's a vehicle for reparations. I don't have enough faith in the United States government to get that done.
So maybe not the United States government, but you do have areas within the country where people have, in fact, been given reparations. Now, there has been talk around these here parts in the city of Detroit about reparations, and I will submit that it's probably just talk. I don't know if anything will ever really come of it, but I agree with you that I do believe in reparations. I do, and I believe reparations is appropriate for any group that has been disenfranchised, in particularly because I'm a Black woman. Because I'm Black, I believe in reparations for Black folks. Now, what it look like, I don't know. You have people who have different definitions or different views of what it should look like. So,
And Queen Bee talks about free education. There should be a method to get our people, our residents educated. How can we be so far behind some other countries? We need to be able to get, people need to be able to get educated. They don't need to be $200,000 in debt, right? That's ridiculous.
right.
So why don't we give people an opportunity? You know, if there's gotta be a way to make people whole. And
So, Jim,
it needs to be taken out of the political process.
would you say education? Everybody doesn't want to go to school.
No, I'm not, but it gives you an opportunity.
My point to you is when you say education, reparations could be in the form of education. What exactly are you talking about?
Well, we have one of our viewers, one of our guests, one of our co-hosts that said that she would enjoy free education. That way she wouldn't have to spend money on education and fight between making the house payment, the water bill, and paying for education. So for some people, that may be a method. I'm not saying you give people, that's the only opportunity for reparation. I'm just suggesting that one of our colleagues said she would enjoy, not having to pay whatever it is, $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year for education. She could put that money somewhere else, maybe in a retirement account, right? So when she gets to be 55 or 65 years old, that $30,000 may be $230,000. So that's just a means to an end. I'm not suggesting that's the only option. I'm just suggesting that Queen Bee looks at it as that would be an opportunity for her, and I understand that. It's crazy how much education costs.
Yeah.
And thank you, Eric. I didn't know that's nuclear. You're talking about nuclear bombs. I did not know that. So excuse me for my ignorance on it all.
Right. So
when you said nuclear, I thought maybe. Go ahead.
We're going to shoot to a break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to address some of our co-hosts. Okay. Detroit and Black.
Homeownership opportunities are rising in the city of Detroit, and there's a house out there that's right for you and your family. You don't even have to worry about credit or getting a loan. You can win a house for as little as $1,000 and pay for the renovation cost as you go. It all starts at buildingdetroit.org and the Detroit Land Bank Authority. Our auction and Own It Now programs offer a variety of houses and neighborhoods all over the city of Detroit. These homes are in desperate need of repair and new ownership. You can begin by going to our interactive map and detailed property listings to find the right fit for you. It won't be easy, and renovation costs are not cheap, but our compliance team is there every step of the way. We will help you track your progress and connect you with local discounts to save you more money. We have already sold more than 15,000 homes in the city of Detroit, and our inventory is shrinking fast, so you don't want to miss out on this wonderful opportunity. Start your home buying journey today by visiting buildingdetroit.org.
Hi, I'm Eric Sabri, your Wayne County Treasurer. If you're living in the home of a deceased family member and you're facing property tax foreclosure, the probate process can be helpful to you. If you file a probate petition and notify our office, the foreclosure proceedings will be halted during the probate process. Contact us at 313-224-5990 or email us at taxinfo@waynecounty.com. We're here to help.
We're back, Detroit Black and White, right, Wednesday evening edition. Thank you guys so much for joining us in this conversation. We have so many comments tonight. I'm going to take some of them, and then you're going to take some of them, Jim. First of all, I want to say good evening to Stephanie Jackson, Karen Winston, Willis Martin, Tamara Kemet, Dorian Denard, Miss Sheila, what's up? Mr. 123, Deborah Harris, Jill Sheridan, Kenneth Reed, Mr. Brown, Power Orgs, where you been? Rebecca Markham, of course, Queen B, Karen Winston. I think I said her name already. So I'm going to take a few of these comments, and then you can chime in, Jim. So one of the comments that I see is pretty long. It was by Queen B. She said, as you may have seen yesterday, Detroit Public Schools Community District Superintendent Dr. Nikolai Vitti went in person to the Detroit City Council meeting to advocate for Sherry Gay Donago for the City of Detroit ombudsman position. The perception is that some of his salary comes from federal money, obviously given to DPSCD. Also, it appears that Vitti was or should have been on duty when he was at the City Council meeting lobbying for Ms. Gay Donago. Is there an ethical issue or a code? And I don't know what else she was asking, but Michael, I'm going to throw it back to you. It may be an ethical question, but it appears to me that voters in the city of Detroit don't give a doggone about ethics. You had a story that came out last week or a week before last, while I was away, about one of the candidates receiving tickets for a concert for free, and sold the tickets or whatever, and people, the voters are like, well, okay, so what? So if there's so what about that, do you really think that people really give a doggone, except for people like you guys, give a doggone about whether or not this is a violation of ethics? I think it's interesting because she sat as a person on the school board. And, I don't know what job she did do or what she didn't do. All I know is the kids in the city of Detroit that goes to DPSCD are not progressing as much as they would like for people to believe. So your job is to have oversight and keep the superintendent in check. Did he say, hey, maybe she is, a thorn on my side. I want her to go over there so she can leave me alone? I don't know what the motivation is, but I'm asking you, viewers, what is it that you think? And do you think that if it is an ethics violation, do you think it's going to make a big difference? We also have Willis Martin, who says the third impeachment will be successful in early 2027. We have Tamari said, Jim, that's been done to Black people since the invasion of the hemisphere. Dorian Denard says Trump has no historical chutzpah. Him showing up at the generals isn't the wisest thing to do. He won't survive his term. Miss Sheila says curse up is taken out of the schools also. We also have a viewer, Mike Evans, who said they took out physical discipline in the schools, and he thinks that has an impact on the lack of education in schools. And I want people to chime in on all these comments. Mr. 1213 said, wouldn't the president be violating the postal
comitatus
choose to train in U.S. cities? Deborah Harris says civics is the study of how government functions and how citizens can actively and knowledgeably participate in their communities and nation, which we don't see. Okay. And Jill says, so glad you're talking about these issues tonight, listening in transit, but pulled off road to let y'all know Saturday show was great too. Thank you so much. You go ahead.
Jill, for tuning in. And Dorian, he's pushing an issue to cover up his involvement with Epstein. I'm not sure. There could be one of a million things, but I guess my question is this. We have 50 people talking back and forth here, and we talk with our colleagues. Why isn't someone saying, you can't turn the guns of United States military, Marine Corps, National Guard on the people that live in your cities?
Exactly.
And then Mike Johnson came out today and said, oh, it's fine. He can do that. Wait a minute.
He could turn it on you, basically. He was saying, basically, it's okay for him to turn it on me. That's crazy.
So he thinks in his own little world, it's never going to be him. Well, it's been a lot of different people in this country. And that's why I bring up Wounded Knee. There's so many examples. You can talk about 1967 in Detroit, the Algiers Motel incident, the police and the National Guard killing innocent musicians. So this isn't anything new, but we've been lucky, right? He's put the National Guard in Washington, D.C. They're standing by a big fountain, watching people, standing there not doing anything. What happens when someone comes up and says, we need you to help? We have an issue. We have a shooting or a stabbing. You're going to need to act. Kent State is a great example. Those weekend warriors had no idea what they were doing. And I think it's 4 students ended up dying in May of 1970. So there's plenty of examples. Dorian, I'm not sure you're giving him a lot of credit for thinking straight on that issue, that he has a reason to do this. I think it's terrifying to think that the president of the United States would turn weapons on the American citizens. And that's just, I just can't imagine. There is no reason to do that. The police in the city know what they're doing, right? They're overwhelmed, they're overworked, but they know what the law is. The National Guard doesn't have a class on the Bill of Rights. They don't operate under they don't look at the Fourth Amendment or the Fifth Amendment, or that's just not how the National Guard works. They're a military organization.
So you have Rebecca Markham, who says it's all intimidation tactics. I'm not buying it. Violence happens everywhere now. It's an American epidemic. I like the fact that she termed it as an American epidemic. I do not disagree. She's absolutely correct.
So why aren't they putting the National Guard in Grand Blanc, where we had an issue up there at the Mormon Church? Why are we saying we need the National Guard in Grand Blanc?
Exactly.
Or in wherever in a small town where, in Montana where the guy shot up the bar. Why don't we need the National Guard in that small town in Montana where the guy killed 3 or 4 people in the bar 2, 3, 4 weeks ago?
So, and the National Guard is not just policing. I know that they've sent National Guards out when you had a natural disaster to help clean up and to help the community. I don't know how that helps anything, but there are people that have different points of views who say, hey, we are so desperate, we want something different. And like I said, my guy from Chicago, he was like, look, I moved from Chicago. They needed them in Chicago and they need them here, especially in the neighborhood that I live in. Dorian says he will avoid everyone's insurance if he sent the military to any city. Detroit is the only city to have it happen twice. People burnt, he said people burnt their own property down before they came, which made the rebellion. Eric says there are a lot of people saying that they would not have a problem with the National Guard being called into the city. He also says you already addressed that. Queen Bee says we can agree what reparations should be, and that's also part of a problem. She says she would take free education. Par Orks is interesting. He said, Vanessa, that's not his opinion. Rather, he's just stuck on stupid. And Stephanie says education should be a reparation, not be a reparation.
Hey, Power Works, who are you talking about? Is he talking about the president? Is that who the Power Works is talking about?
I think that's who he's talking about. Power, you're talking about the president, right? Kenneth says the elders and his family told us about the horrors of the Detroit Police and National Guard and the 82nd Airborne hitting the streets of Detroit during the 1967 rebellion. Well, Kenneth, why don't you put in the chat what your parents told you? I was here. I was a little kid. I was here on Earth, and I remember looking out the window. My mother told me, get the heck out the window, because I wanted to see what was going on. And I remember smelling the smoke from the fires. And when I went and stood in the window, I remember waving like, it was a parade or something. I was a little kid. I mean, I was a little girl. But I don't recall anybody telling me about the horrors of the Detroit Police and National Guard and the 82nd Airborne. I'm talking about from my family. Sure. I do recall reading it as I got older and hearing people talk about it, but not anyone in my family. So
that's a great book, The Algiers Motel Incident, if you ever get an opportunity to read it, right there in Midtown.
Right.
So Queen Bee, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Going back to Vidi and Sherry Gay,
mm-hmm.
Dan Yogo. People say, how can you play both sides? I think that's what we're talking about. Queen Bee thought it was unethical. I guess my only argument there, and I'm not arguing with you, Queen Bee, I don't disagree at all with you, but you have to give them credit for coming out of the darkness and doing it, instead of most political people that make their moves are doing it behind the scenes. And you don't see it. So if he had the courage to go before the Detroit City Council, I think it's a terrible look. I agree with you. It may be unethical, but I give him a little credit for coming out and doing it in public. I don't agree with it, but I understand it.
Yeah. Eric said, bingo, Vanessa. He doesn't want Sherry Gay Donago around anymore. I find it quite interesting because we've talked about this. And Eric, Reality Strikes, by the way, if you guys want to hear about education, he's the education guy. Detroit Black and White presents Reality Strike on Mondays. He talk about these very issues that we're talking about. I think it's interesting that you had the superintendent to go to city council meeting, where we know that the city charter says that while the mayor and the council do not run the school or the school board, right? They don't run the schools. They're supposed to work together. So is this a sign that now he's going to start working with Detroit City Council in Detroit? Or was it, listen, I want her out of here because she's causing some problems for me. I don't know. I don't go to the Detroit Public School Board meetings. I do have people who talk to me about, what's going on. We do pay attention to the test scores. we do pay attention to, the headlines in the papers about what is not going on and what is going on.
But
And it doesn't look great.
let's back up. Where's the success in the district? Why are you in
None.
there advocating for somebody if you haven't had the success you need in
Right.
the district? So what did this candidate for ombudsman do to make the school system better? And what if she did? Where are my results? Because
Right.
results matter.
Right.
I'm not
Right.
suggesting she is or she isn't. My question is, if people can't read and write and she's on the school board, maybe you should be advocating for this for any individual in that scenario.
Right.
I'm not saying she did or she didn't, right?
Right.
She might be the best school
Board
representative
member.
there is. School
Yeah.
board member, and she may have been the best state representative that we
Oh.
ever had. But I want to see the results, and I'm sure as heck not seeing the results there.
Okay. Part Org said he was talking about my student that lives in Chicago who moved here.
Thank you.
He was talking about my student for class. Hopefully he's watching the show tonight. And I will say it was we were on a break and it was a conversation between he and another student. And it wasn't personal, but he as they say, he stood on business. He was very passionate about his position. And again, he said, "Hey, I've been in the military. I totally agree with it. I personally don't. And while I'm not in the position that he's in terms of where he lives, what district he lives in, or whatever the case may be, I will say that because of what I do for a living, and Jim, you can relate to that. Although you retired, because of what you do, what you did for a living, you've seen firsthand what goes on, what the results are, what the impacts are. And so you understand how people may feel the way that he feels. And while I don't agree with him, I do understand. So Kenneth said, Vanessa, I can't stay everything because it's only 200 characters per post. Some of my elders lived at ground zero in the 1967 rebellion. I understand. Maybe, Kenneth, you could come on the show one day and talk about it.
And Kenneth's already made an appearance at McShane some time ago. It's been a little while.
Right.
So Queen Bee, when I was growing up, parents couldn't read, demanded their kids go to school. To Mary, when Lincoln was assassinated, the vice president rescinded. Miss Sheila, people say we smell corruption within the Detroit school system. Ouchie. Well, so, okay. I'm going to leave it there because, maybe Nick Vitti needs to be working on the schools and not hanging out at the Detroit City Council trying to promote a friend of his.
Listen, I still don't understand how this guy can get away with. Listen, where you have your kids educated is your business, but I don't understand how you, the superintendent, and your kids are going to a private school in a neighboring suburb. I just don't understand that. I really don't. Karen Winston says, we talked about reparations, which is interesting. She said Detroit retirees need reparations from our pension benefits being pilfered.
I agree with that 150%. The city made a promise to you and they failed on their promise, whether it's health care or your pension. They need to make that whole. And the county, there were some issues that are very similar. The county did not declare bankruptcy, but a lot of those people suffered in those areas without bankruptcy. So I don't know exactly how that happened, but there are county employees that also had the same fate as the Detroit city employees.
Right. Deborah Harris, she has an outrage. She said her rage today is the government shutdown benefit for people dependent on social services and programs to help the community needs. So she pissed that there is a government shutdown. But and I talked about this earlier with one of our co-hosts, Dwayla Boyce. And good thing is not the TSA and things like that. People can still travel and that kind of thing. But aren't you guys guys sick or tired of them doing this? That's not what we're paying you for. We're paying for progress to get things done. Jim, are you tired of them doing this? It's y'all. Are you tired of it?
It's like the Wizard of Oz, like the Scarecrow. Everybody's doing this. It's their fault. It's someone else's fault.
I'm sick of it.
Yeah. Tamari said that that's what the police do to black people all the time. That's bad police, Tamari. There's no excuse for that. They wouldn't work in a department I was leading. You can't mistreat anybody in a police department. And I think some departments are getting better. Some are not getting better. I agree. And it's unfortunate that black people suffer at the hands of the police, because that's not the way it's supposed to work. That's bad government. That's the government that we're talking about, that Eric's talking about, that want to control people, and they don't care what the results are as long as they get their way. And that's ridiculous. What if the reason for the feds is what if the reason for the feds is national security? Maybe the threat from inside is true. Thank you, Stephanie. I think there is a threat, but I don't think it's a military function to go after what you think is a threat, whether it's terrorism, whether it's whatever it may be. But that's not the role of the military, in my opinion. Jackson State, Willis Martin. Thank you, Willis.
Yeah.
He believes he can do whatever he wants.
Right. I'm going to go to Queen B, and then we're going to shoot to commercial, because I want to read this statement. She said, is there an ethical issue or a conflict of interest for Dr. Aviti doing this? Listen, Queen B, it may be both. She said, is his lobbying even legal? Was he lobbying? People will probably say he was lobbying. She believed James Tate identified Aviti by his title when the concession was made to allow him to speak for 60 seconds outside of public comment.
This needs to be on the
misuse. She said this feels like a misuse of federal funds, because he's essentially lobbying when he should be at work. Moreover, under 2 CFR subsection 200-450, excuse me, lobbying federal grant money cannot be used for lobbying activities to influence elected officials in favor of I guess in favor of someone getting a position. I think that's what she's saying.
He needs to be on the agenda. If he's speaking outside of public comments, he needs to be on the agenda. There's rules.
And the public should be outraged. We're going to shoot to commercial, and then we'll go back and finish talking about this.
Nearly 30,000 vacant lots all over the city of Detroit are for sale right now. That's right, nearly 30,000 vacant lots are available now, starting at just $100. The lot next to your house or the lot down the street. Make it yours today in just a few simple clicks. Find out if it is available by visiting buildingdetroit.org. At the Detroit Land Bank Authority, side lots are just $100 and neighborhood lots sell for $250. You can apply and pay online today by visiting buildingdetroit.org. And if you don't see the lot you're looking for, call our offices. Our phone number is 313-974-6869. Again, that is 313-974-6869.
Wow. So getting back to Queen B's statement, I see Eric Brown is saying that Reverend Anthony was also an advocate to speak on her behalf. Wow. I don't know if he was on the agenda or what, but my question is, you said that he was before the meeting. Did he talk before the general, or did he have an off the record conversation? Do you know? Queen B, Eric, please let us know.
And how about Stephanie Jackson? If a Chinese student can do research on a plan for national warfare, who knows what's going on in the U.S. I agree with that, Stephanie.
Yep.
My point isn't to intelligence. My point isn't to investigations. My point is to on the streets, National Guard troops or the U.S. United States Marines or the U.S. Army walking around as a threatening. And I guess it's threatening. It's intimidation to the citizens of this country or to the citizens of this city, any city. You know, who this is very common in governments like North Korea or China or Russia, where the government used intimidation over its citizens. And I'm not suggesting that the U.S. has never done that. I just think to openly suggest that this is what is a training ground. When you train, you learn to fight, right? If you're in the Marines, you learn to fight. And if you're going to learn to fight, who are you going to be fighting if you're learning in New York City or Chicago or Los Angeles? The only people you have to fight are the citizens of that community. That's why I think it's outrageous. Tamari says, Eric, reparation is a debt owed. Reparations are justice. Thank you. Dorian, why didn't Congress allow the lady from Arizona to be sworn into Congress? Because she would have a vote to bring forth the Epstein files. Dorian, I'm not really familiar with, I'm not familiar with that particular Congress, that situation, but I will tell you this. The Epstein files are coming out. They may not come out today. They might not come out tomorrow, but secrets cannot be held under wraps. So if there's something there in the Epstein files, I said this 6 months ago on this program, that I believe that if the Epstein files have some of the information that it may have, it could be the long-term, it could be the end of the sitting U.S. president, because that's just how these things work, right? There's whispers, there's talk. Eventually, the stuff starts coming out, whether it's Epstein or whether it was the director in Hollywood. Everybody was talking about him. Everybody was talking. I can't think of his name right now. But
You talking about what's his name?
yeah,
Harvey Weinstein.
Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
Those turn into a snowball. So I don't think anybody can stop that information from getting out if there's people out there that have that information.
But here's the thing, though, Jim. If it comes out, do you think it's going to make a difference? Do you think it's really going to make a difference?
Well, it could. Sexual assault, P. Diddy. You know, look. Some of these things, what they build up over years and years, and the whisper turns into people going, "That's enough. We're done with this individual." So my point is, Gary Hart, follow me. And what happened? They followed Gary Hart and found him with his girlfriend, right?
Right.
So these things happen. Can you guys have Gloria House of the Detroit Reparations Task Force on your show? We absolutely can if we can get a hold of her. I do miss the McShane's broadcast days, Kenneth. We'll be back there soon.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they changed the name to the Department of War. That's a terrible thing. So that's exactly the kind of the point I'm making, is that the Marines are to protect the United States. They're not to go to war. It's a defensive. When you turn into an offensive group for no good reason, bad things happen. And I hated that they call it the Department of War. It should be the Department of Defense. And that's where are the people talking to the president? Doesn't he listen to anybody? He's listening to Pete Hegseth. You know, it's troubling to me.
Right.
Eric Brown, I challenge you to find a city or state in America that has a reparations committee task force and have fulfilled the promise to Black people in their city, state. Thank you for your comment, Eric. I think fulfill their promise to all people. If somebody has been treated, when someone has been treated unfairly and someone has been put under the thumb of government, that should be not just fulfill the promise to Black people. It's fulfill the promise of this country to do the right thing. So I don't want to be nitpicky, but it's if it's right for Black people, it's right for everybody.
No.
Go ahead.
But I think that, and I know one of our co-hosts talked about Abraham Lincoln promising our ancestors 40 acres and a mule. And I think I said something about this last week. We've been waiting 5 billion years and we still don't have the 40 acres and a mule. Deborah Harris talks about her outrage is that the governments benefit from uneducated people, that they basically are easier to manipulate. Without robust critical thinking and media literacy, it is simpler for governments to spread propaganda and misinformation without being challenged. A less informed population is more susceptible to rhetoric and less able to discern facts from falsehood. I give you a round of applause, Deborah. I totally agree with you that the government benefits from us being uneducated. Um,
That's why there's shows like this
is,
show that we can all share information.
that
Information like that right there.
Absolutely. Isn't that wonderful? An example of that is this. Queen Bee pointed out something that happened with, the process of our superintendent going to a city council meeting, advocating for someone that he has a relationship with, that she sat on the school board advocating for her to get a job. And clearly people, and I'm saying the electorate, uneducated about it, uneducated about the lobbying, whether or not it's ethical, whether or not the person is lobbying, whether it goes against the federal money that the school district gets. They depend on us not knowing those things. But the wonderful thing that we have is this. We have you guys on Detroit Black and White who love to participate. Not only do you educate us as the host of Detroit Black and White, but you're educating the other people that are watching, because you better believe they're going out and telling other people about what they've learned here on Detroit and Black and White. And that's one of the reasons why we do this show.
Probably the primary reason. So Marlon, our friend from Florida, Chicago is out of control in Detroit every day. Now, I don't disagree with your position, Marlon, but the National Guard or the military, do you really think it's a good idea? I mean, let's face it, it's for show. It's for intimidation.
Oh, absolutely.
If it was really effective long-term, you can make an argument. There's a guy running for mayor of New York City right now, Curtis Sliwa, right? It was I always forget the name, whatever the whatever the name of his organization was, the guy with the berets that went around and
gosh, I can't think of his name. He had the little beret, the little thing.
Yeah, he's running for mayor of New York City. Well, the community can stop crime. The community can get it done. The police only, when you talk about Chicago and Detroit, I'm not disagreeing with you, but the issue is, I always say this, the police are a representative of the people of the city, right? The police department works for the residents of their community, not the other way, or guardian angels. Thank you, Derek. Not the other way around, right?
Right.
The police department has to respond to the community's needs, and the community decides how strict that policing effort is before they raise hell, right? Vanessa, as an attorney, there's a couple people that some things get away with things, but I just, we've been fortunate, right? We've had the National Guard in one place, I believe, and that's Washington, D.C. And Washington, D.C. has a significant crime issues, violent crime. But I don't see that, and I've said this before, the National Guard doesn't stop a domestic violence case. Exactly. And then the president comes out and says, oh, domestic violence isn't really a crime. Well, what is a crime? What's more violent than a man beating up a woman? There's nothing more violent, other than a homicide. Can you imagine? That's intimidation. It happens to women on men too, but that's about as intimidating and as threatening and controlling as you can be in this life as domestic violence. Why the president doesn't think that's a problem, I don't get that.
Yeah, no, and you know what? You and I, we agree and we disagree at points in time. But I agree with you. I think that this whole conversation about conversation and action about the National Guard is just that. It's for show. It's to take your eyes off of what is really going on. We're talking about it on this show, right? But what's really going on? Listen, you still have the Epstein files that have not been revealed. You have the president going after Comey, who has so many secrets and information about a whole lot of people. To me, this is all a show. And I'm not saying that he is the only president has done this, right? There's been other presidents that's been vindictive, but the fact of the matter is we're talking about him today. So you have this whole thing about the National Guard, but you got a government shutdown. You got a government shutdown.
And that's for sure.
You have the Epstein file. And guess what? Crime is still running amok. Okay?
But look, Dorian.
So DC, what, do you think crime is going to stop? Get the hell out of here. That's so ridiculous. Go ahead, Jim.
And Dorian, we've talked about this before. Crime is rooted in poverty in a capitalist society. It'll never go away because you'll always have and have-nots in that type of society mixed with xenophobia and racism. And you're right on, Dorian. You eliminate poverty, and I think that, and we've talked about Dr. West. Dr. West is the guy, and people think he's a lunatic, but he's right on. He may be far out in some ideas, but he's right on about poverty.
But let me ask you this, Jim, and I'm asking our co-host, do you really believe that people really want to, and I'm saying people, that the government, right, that they really want to get rid of poverty? Or do you believe that it's really a talking point and we're only going to just do a little bit to make it appear as if we're addressing it? But there's a lot of money. People make a lot of money off of poverty.
I agree.
I'm going to use the, what do you call it? The bridge card. It's a hell of a lot of money being made off a bridge card. You got Costco's, you got Sam's Club, you got the doggone gas station. You even have some restaurants that allow people to use the EBT card. It's a hell of a lot of money, okay, that people make from that. People make a lot of money from poverty.
I think
And
that's right.
Queen B talk about poverty pimps. I don't know. And when people talk about poverty pimps, they tend to say that, some ministers are poverty pimps. But I think that we're being pimped by the people that they elect. And I really do believe that, But a part of me, and I think a part of us still have that hope and belief that things will get better. We want this world to get better. We have faith that things are going to get better. But, what we look at every day is like, is it really going to happen? Is it we want it to happen? What'd you say, Jim?
Nothing changes until we change, right? Nothing changes until we decide it's got to change, right? We've talked about reparations a lot. And if you look at the billions of dollars the U.S. government throws away every year, instead of trying to make people whole, billions and billions of dollars we waste in this country every year. So when you talk about issues like poverty, how can a country like this not eliminate some of these issues? And I'm talking about for good. Eric, I was just trying to read it. Kenneth Reed was talking about Curtis Sliwa. I would have liked to have been a fly on the wall when Coleman Young and Curtis Sliwa, I had a face off. I know who won that face off. Dwellia, we have a president who's been given complete immunity, so he doesn't care about what we think. He sure doesn't think about long-term ramifications of some of his decisions. I will give you that, Dwellia. It's a shame that the very people who are owed reparation are the same ones who discourage us from receiving. No other group has received reparations, worked against it, but Negroes. I don't like that even use that, but I get your point. Guardian Angels, thank you guys. Jill, Mr. 1213. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, I couldn't either. I mean, I could picture him and the little tank with the little thing on it, but I couldn't remember his name either.
Yeah, the other groups.
I saw a photo of him not too long ago. He wears a lot of makeup, but I digress. Eric Brown says Maryland and California are two states that move forward with reparations for Black descendants of slaves. They were overturned in both states by Black people in those states, and awards are not to be, I guess awards are not to be given. Not shocking, disappointing, not surprised. Explain that. Okay, explain that. Deborah Harris said something nice. Deborah Harris said, thank God for Detroit Black and White. And Deborah, we're going to say, thank God for you and the rest of our co-hosts. You know, I know one day we were on the show and you were just really disillusioned with the conversation, but you came back the next day when we were on, and we thank you. We thank you guys for providing us with information, because you guys give us information. I know I get information that I don't have, and we try to give the information that we do have. So we really appreciate that.
And here's the thing: we're not at full strength. We have a couple on injured reserve, and we've had from time to time. And you know what?
Yep.
You know who's picked up the slack? Not us. It's the people out there that are participating in this program that have made this show more interesting than it would be if we were just talking all the time. Tamari, the other groups that got reparations work together, demand it, and that's how they got it. That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. You need an organization. Queen Bee talks about poverty and capitalism, and she made another point: poverty pimps. People are getting rich, keeping people poor. And I think there's some truth to that. And that's really unfortunate. Thank you, Queen Bee, for your comments.
Right.
Rebecca Markham, somebody has to pay taxes.
She's correct.
Stephanie Jackson, and benefiting. Poverty pimp, spot on. Dorian, Eric is giving you a thumbs up there. Queen Bee, again, Rebecca, it's not the billionaires. You know, I think the billionaires are the easy target, Rebecca. Thank you for your comment. Eric, as soon as I proved it, you shot it down shallow to Mary. Blacks have been brutalized worse than any group in America. Reparations are a no-brainer. Exclude slavery if you want. It's been a bitch. Thank you, Marlon, for your comment. You're right on.
Right.
How do you dispute what Marlon has to say? I always appreciated Marlon on the show. Thank you for your comments.
Right. Dwayla, and her name is Dwayla. She says everyone who gets SNAP benefits are not in poverty, and they rake it in $5,000 a month. Again, I said a whole lot of people are making money off these SNAP benefits. So, and I agree with, I think it was Queen Bee who says, in order for capitalism, and I'm paraphrasing, in order for capitalism to work, you're going to have poverty. So, you know, when you have these politicians talking about we need to address poverty, everybody needs to be made whole. Guess what? Just like y'all talk about affordable housing, it sounds like word salad to me. It just, you know, you just words that sound great and make people feel great. Get out of here.
And I'm sorry, Dwayla. I try. For some reason I have trouble putting your name together. I apologize. So that's on me. It should be easy, right? Dwayla.
Right, Dwayla. Absolutely.
For some reason.
Right.
My apologies, Dwayla.
Yep. And so Tamara says, you guys hold it together. We're holding it together. We're going to be back at 4 very soon. You know, I've had to take some time off. Jim had to take some time off. Adolf has had to take some time off. And of course, Alan has had to take some time off. But we make sure that we bring a show to you guys every Wednesday, every Friday, every Saturday. We do have some guests that we have on deck. We're just trying to figure out what days we're going to have them on. So we want to tell you guys, thank you so much for watching Detroit in Black and White, for making your comments and telling all your people about the best show where on these YouTube streets. You can catch us on all social media platforms. And you can catch us every Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Wednesday and Friday, 8:30, 9:30, Saturday, 10 to 11. We will soon be going back live at what's
Guardian Building. Guardian.
We're going to a Guardian building, and then eventually going to go back to where were you attacked? What was the name of that restaurant?
Where was the tech? McShane's. We have a commercial line here for McShane's. Go eat at McShane's. Tell them that Detroit and Black and White sent you. And seriously, everybody, thank you for helping us while we were down here, and we're hoping to be back.
Terry, you right. It ain't easy. Pimping ain't easy, and getting seasoned ain't easy either. Good night, guys.
Thank you,
Take
Rebecca.
care.